Okay, so this is Professor JPS trying a slightly different version of YouTube Live. And this is part 3 for Communication Arts 257, American Film Heritage, the 60s film class. Okay, I just have a few items here at this late hour to go over. In terms of your reading for American Graffiti from 2 weeks ago, the key page is page 51. The last 3 paragraphs on that reading. In that area, they discuss the creation of that particular town during that particular time period, and also how the work of the sound editor was very, very important. Remember, in terms of the context of the film is very important to understand, because during this time period, many filmmakers were making films that were relatively critical of the changes in American life. They were on the sides of the people who were very much interested in working for civil rights and against the Vietnam War and against established authorities and against militarism. And this particular film is not like that. This particular film goes back in time to create a sense of nostalgia for the baby boom generation. One of the key films to try that sense of nostalgia really for the first time. And that's why partly why it was such a hit. In terms of the film MASH, I think as I mentioned in part 2, your reading for MASH is really the most important, okay? Because the program notes that I have written for MASH, it's almost like my lecture notes that would have happened for the class time period anyway. So double check all of those things after you see the film, okay? It's a funny film, but I'd also be curious about your take on it, because the movie doesn't age all that well. As I said before, it's relatively sexist. It has a kind of quiet racism to it, although its heart is in the right place, but still it makes kinds of jokes that wouldn't be made, I think, 50 years later. But the key idea is that it's like Dr. Strangelove, making fun of militarism, making fun of the idea of the people who have the power and the authority. And that was, again, like most of the films we're going to see in this class, how it is that these movie makers were trying to help cohere or coordinate with the changing times, anti-authority, anti-establishment. When you think about MASH, you have to understand that it's made in 1970 and it's reaching audiences who were ready to make fun of the military by this time, starting with Dr. Strangelove at the beginning of the semester and, working its way through this particular time period. It's a very sloppy looking, but funny and irreverent, but film, but it's also a film that's filled with interesting mise-en-scène stuff, okay? So, finished with American Graffiti from 2 weeks ago. I think you have a decent amount of information from this streamlined lecture. And you have the notes that's really from my lecture notes, essentially, that allow for this movie to be enjoyed. Now, in terms of screening sheets, what I'd like you to do is try to make sure that you're sending me an attachment, okay? So just do the best you can to get those screening sheets in, but please let me know who you are and which class it is. This is COM 257, okay? It's the American Film Heritage, just COM 257. Try to get that in your mind. And if you have me for other classes, try to know the number. COM 101, COM 205, COM 154 is the Intro to Film Studies class. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, so stay safe. Please make sure you're taking this seriously, and I'll speak to you soon. Hopefully this stream worked well. Good night.